Welcome to episode 11 of the Hump Day Huddle. Just to clear something up, we're sorry about episode 10. We had some difficulties with a variety of things last week. Couldn't get that recorded, but wasn't we thought, Arkansas game, not a huge game. When they really need us, Joe, is to preview Texas A&M and the Lone Star Showdown, just the second in well over a decade as the rivalry has been renewed. But first, of course, we got to recap this wild shootout in Austin. If you had under 98, you lost 50, I believe my math is correct, 52 to 37. The game, oh no, that game's wrong. If you had under 88, you lost. If you had under 88, you lost 52 to 37. It finished in favor of your Texas Longhorns, but there was many bumps along the way. Joe, what are your thoughts on this wacky and wild game at DKR that happened on Saturday?
Yeah, I didn't expect Arkansas to put up 37. Now, I will say that Texas, the offense lived up to what I thought it could have. I don't think I had them getting 52 points, but I expected that they'd get hot and they'd want to prove a point that they want to be in the CFP and they want to run up the score against a team that was inferior to them. I get that completely. I knew they could at least get hot at some point. I didn't expect as many garbage time points from Arkansas, but nonetheless, a win is a win. And Arch Manning just keeps on getting better. Keeps on getting better. Looks so smooth out there for the most part. And like you were saying last week, you can say for sure that Arch has grown this year. And you saw it again. I know it's not the most or the best competition in the SEC. In fact, they are quite literally one of the worst, the Arkansas Razorbacks, but you got to play who's in front of you. And he didn't play as well against Kentucky or I guess Mississippi State statistically, if you want to put it that way, as he did in this Arkansas game, lit up the box score, lit up the stat chart, looked excellent, had a 91.7 QPR, and he was hitting everybody in the numbers for the most part. Deep ball looked really crisp. Livingstone dropped one of them, but
He
it wasn't the
did.
most perfect ball. But for the most part, he got some catchable. He made catchable passes for his receiver. That's all you can ask for your quarterback in the majority of the game. So just so proud of Arch Manning and how he's improved this season because we have seen quite a few bumps in the road from Ohio State, and some other competitors down the line, such as Florida. A game that's really haunting Texas so far in the CFP chase.
Oh boy, and we'll get into the playoff committee. We're recording Tuesday night. We'll get into the playoff committee and their assessment, and playoff committee insider from ESPN, Henner Dinich's assessment of their assessment. So it's just third hand news here, but I think it's valuable what she said. But just to put a bow on Arkansas before we get to the playoff discussion, um, I mean, you're right. I have said that Arch is growing week by week. We've seen a lot. We've seen not just mentally up here, which you expect from a young guy. His mechanics look better. His footwork looks better. He looks more poised, which is both, I guess, physical and mental. Um, some of the stuff, some of the throws he made, rolling to his left, rolling to his right on Saturday, that finding, I forget who it was in the end zone, threading the needle. It might have been Mosley to find him. Joe, you know
Mhm.
the play I'm talking about through traffic.
Yeah, I believe it was
That was the arch that was advertised, and that was awesome to see. Just to put a bow on the offense, 8 for 12 on third down. They've had a lot of third down struggles this year. Again, we understand this is against Arkansas. We're just calling balls and strikes here. There is undoubted positives.
Mhm.
490 total yards in an SEC ball game. You're at home, sure, that is undoubtedly a positive. No turnovers. You speak of that Florida loss. Turnovers killed them in that game, and the Gators killed them on field position as a result of that. Um, Spectacular stuff from March. They had 10 drives, not counting the kneel down at the end of the game, Joe. Six of them resulted in touchdowns, one field goal. And another issue that's plagued them this year, three and outs or short drives, only two three and outs, and one of them was the field goal after the turnover. Hard not to get better than that in a conference game. But then I wanted to say all that and then give you the defensive stats. We got to talk about the
Hmm.
defense, Joe. We gotta get in the defense.
My
I
God.
have on my notes written here. I obviously I knew this phrase before I got to South Texas, but it's said a lot more down here. Ay, ay, ay. Ay, ay, ay. Against two different quarterbacks. Two different quarterbacks. Arkansas, 29 first downs. That I would venture to guess, even counting the Florida game, should have went back and checked this. That would be a season high against Texas. 512 total yards, over 6 yards per carry. And what I posed to you, Joe, is what's going on with this defense? You had texted that, Anthony Hill, he wears the green dot for a reason. He's a fantastic talent. He was a huge miss, and you can get into that. But what I also say to you is without, especially that third quarter interception, what would this game have become? They were
Man, it was looking
atrocious.
rough. I mean, Arkansas was running up and down the field. I mean, the run defense was non-existent. I mean, you talk about just the awful run defense in those first two quarters. They were
Mm.
making it look easy. I mean, you expect
At
A&M,
home. At
yeah,
home.
you expect A&M later this week to be watching that film intently. Now, Anthony Hill, I think he'll be playing this game. I can't tell you for certain. Steve Sarkisian's kind of being low key about it,
Yeah.
but in a game of this magnitude, you'd have to think that he'd be back for this matchup. And so again, that
May not be
Anthony Hill.
100% though.
Yeah, Anthony Hill missing this game, like it was obvious. I mean, you could see his impact, and when he's not playing, how different this defense looks. It almost reminds me of Sean Lee when he wasn't playing in the Cowboys defense, and
Wow. That's
how
a throwback.
night
Yeah,
and day it used to look. Like it used to look like a completely different operation. But that
that's true.
Arkansas run offense was just running up and down the field. Mike Washington Jr. What a game.
Mm.
Taylon Green obviously got knocked out of the game, but KJ Jackson stepped up there and surpassed him in pass yards in like a quarter. I mean, it was
Yeah.
unreal to watch.
Yeah.
My goodness, KJ Jackson, take a bow. I don't know how much they're gonna try to keep him in
Yeah.
this next cycle, but he looked pretty decent in Austin. So this defense, I don't want to. I feel like I'm supposed to be concerned about this a lot, but I really think it's just the Anthony Hill effect. And I think that if Anthony
All of that,
Hill,
Joe, all of that
it's rough, man.
against a team that is now 2-9, and might I remind you, have wins this year over the mighty Alabama A&M and some school I forgot because I'm pretty sure it's an FCS school.
My thing is this: you can probably wash this game off because they haven't played this bad run defense in quite a while. I mean,
Yes.
this
Yes.
was crazy. I want to feel like this is an outlier game, but my God, I mean, I didn't expect Arkansas to put up 37. Neither one of us did, right?
No. No.
Unreal to see what was happening in those at least in the last quarter and a half, and somehow still winning by 15. Just speaks
Yeah.
to how great this offense was clicking on all cylinders. So
Now, some of the defensive numbers will also give them a little bit of leeway in that obviously that game was out of hand by the early fourth quarter. So you're playing quarters coverage. You're playing very lax stuff.
exactly.
You're gonna give them stuff for 8, 9 yards that you would absolutely never give them earlier in the game. We understand that, but very worrying. Also, I mean, just looking at all the names on this box score for Arkansas, so many guys getting involved. I mean, you had six pass catchers with multiple catches. Mike Washington Jr., like you said, 17 carries for a buck five and a touchdown. Had that 41-yard run. Got past the second level. Now, this is just a great observation, though. You know who had two catches for 29 yards? A guy who should have been on the all name team. His name is Omega Blake.
That
O
name was awesome.
O apostrophe Mega. I did not catch that during the game.
I
I wish I
absolutely love. I
had.
caught that. That name is awesome. I love that name, by the way. I love that
It's
name.
tremendous. It's
I
tremendous.
mean,
I
it's
mean,
unique.
I bet he's not Irish, but Omega. I mean, that's fantastic. Anything else you want to touch on from this Arkansas game? Obviously, we got to touch on the playoff drama, and then obviously get to this Lone Star Showdown. Anything else, Joe?
Not too much, just a win's a win. You did what you're supposed to do. I wish the deficit could have been even larger, but maybe I'm getting too greedy there.
Well, speaking of the deficit and speaking of this defense, as we shift now to the Longhorns being ranked 16th tonight by the playoff committee. Remember, it's not good enough to be ranked 12th in this scenario because you have to take into account that the ACC champion will likely be outside of the top 12 if it's not Miami, and the group of five champion holding out hope for you JMU Dukes. Shout out the boys back home. We're making a run this year. Could be them, could be a different group of five champion, could be Tulane, for instance. That would also take
North
up one of those.
Texas.
North Texas, that could also take up one of those 12 spots. So, really, for the Longhorns as an at large team, they are six places out because they're in 16th and you need to be up to 10th. So, Heather Dinich, with that backstory, tonight in her article recapping the selection committee's rankings, she went conference by conference saying, last team, kind of like March Madness, last team in, first team out, definitely in, definitely out. She had Texas down there with the likes of the seller of the SEC and dysfunctional programs like LSU saying that Texas is categorically out. Your thoughts, Joe? Is Texas categorically out? And did the defense, looking bad, potentially play them out of this? What if this was a 52-10 thumping like that Texas Tech game from a few years
It
back?
def it definitely feels like that could have possibly factored. Now, Heather Dinich has way better sources than
Of
both of us,
course,
so
of course.
I get where she's
She's not
coming
really saying
from.
what she's thinking. She's more saying what she
Yeah,
knows. So what
from the
you and I
committee.
are
Yeah,
saying is, are they right? Because this is just people's opinions. They can be wrong.
exactly. The thing is, I mean, if Texas finds a way to put a thumping on A&M, not just merely win, but what if they win by 10? What if they win by 12? What do you do with that Texas team? I mean, at that point, they'd beaten A&M and they'd beaten OU in a neutral site, and they'd also beaten a top 10 Vandy team at home. What do you do?
A
So,
Vandy team who she, by the way, has as the SEC's first team out.
yeah, I mean,
She said the Commodores could get in, but they need a lot of chaos in front of them. I'm not saying Texas should be in. That Florida loss was really, really bad looking back at it, even though Gainesville's a tough place to play. I'm just saying I think it's a bit harsh of her and that the Longhorns should be right there next to Vanderbilt as probably out, but could sneak in if there's a lot of chaos ahead of them. That's where I fall.
yeah, and I hate to be all slimy like this, but we've talked about this in the past, and a lot of other teams, like the brand of Texas speaks. If they find a way to beat this A&M team, which is number three in the
Yep.
rankings, yet again, that top three is unchanged after yet another week of unveiling the rankings. Arch Manning, I mean, that name, come on, the Manning dynasty, the Texas brand, it wouldn't surprise me if they somehow found a way to slip in. That is, if they won by a lot. I think if they won by, say, a game-winning field goal, I don't know if it'd be enough. But it depends on how they compete against A&M. Because A&M, the pressure is not on them at all. I mean, they're almost a lock for the SEC championship game.
But
But for Texas,
there's some pressure. There's pressure on
there's
both
some
sides.
pressure.
It's a Lone Star Showdown. The pressure on A&M is they need to get a win.
Yeah, and the
They
fact
the
that
ones
they
is
didn't play Ole
yeah.
Miss and they also didn't play Georgia. None of those top three teams have played each other. So, depending on this weekend, the final standings to go to the championship game depend on strength of schedule, which is kind of ridiculous. And this is why I hate how big these conferences have gotten,
Yes.
because if they just kept it split, what if they sent OU to one part of the SEC East and they sent Texas to the SEC West? I don't know. You could have kept the same structure of these conferences in the past and had them play the same opponents, flip-flop every other year where you play each stadium site. And then, you could find a way into a conference game, just the winner of the SEC East and West. But now when you have these massive conferences like they do in every single super conference now, you're not going to play every single opponent, and you have situations like this. And it's just ridiculous because how can you say you're better than this team when you don't even play them? It's all based off a strength of schedule that you made, months in the past. So that's where it gets tricky for A&M because they haven't competed against Georgia and Ole Miss, and neither have they competed against A&M. And so with that factor, it does matter for A&M, like you were saying. So weirdly enough, it matters just as much for them.
outside of the rivalry, this game would matter if each of these teams were 6-5 in lame duck
Sure.
seasons. It matters for recruiting. It matters just for talking smack. It matters for the fan bases. Um, and it just matters to state of Texas. Now, I would agree. If they put the thumping on them, they are,
How could you leave
they,
them out?
well, no, how could you, I don't know. How could you not consider them? Because remember, Texas being a three-loss team makes things very problematic, even with the context of two of those losses being to two of the best teams in the country. You
Hmm.
know, um, interesting nugget though, Joe. Marcel Reed has been talked about as a Heisman contender, and he has certainly played better than Arch has this year. Here's an interesting nugget though for you, and I would say Texas has played a harder schedule this year. Arch has 11 more passing yards on the season than Marcel Reed does, 23 touchdowns to 7 picks. Marcel, 25 touchdowns to 8 picks. I understand Marcel Reed probably has better rushing numbers, but maybe this gap at the most important position on the field isn't as big as we thought it was a few weeks ago. And the last time we saw A&M play any sort of competition, they were down 30-3 in their home stadium at halftime. So when we look at the playoff and we look, will things happen if Texas gets a win? How do you like Texas' chances to get that win, to complete that first step?
I like their chances very well, and I've been consistent on this. Like for months, I've seen A&M win in Notre Dame. I've seen them come back against South Carolina. I've seen them win in Death Valley. I mean, all just valiant victories, very good, great efforts. It's a team game. You find a way to do it through all three phases, and what a job by Mike Elko this year. Went through a lot of scrutiny in that first year he had, even though they had 8 wins, but he had to go through the mockery of being Texas 8-4 and not
Yeah.
living up to the hype of being this new voice coming in. And it took time. And he's really superseded expectations this year. They've done a really solid job. But this is a different game. This is not
Yep.
just, any other game. This is not your standard end of season matchup. It is rivalry week across the whole brand of college football. It's different. Throw away all the stats. I don't care
Yes.
about the stats in this game.
Yes.
This is just mano a mano. You go against me, rivalry versus rivalry, orange versus maroon. Anything can happen, right?
Yep.
And with that being said, I think it honestly favors Texas just because it's in DKR and they have way more pressure than A&M has on them. And the fact that Texas is playing for their CFP lives right here, knowing that they have no chance of getting in the SEC championship like they did last year, they're going to get desperate, I think, in this game. Arch Manning, I think, is going to play one of his very best games that he has all season long. I don't know if Trey Wisner has the game that he had against A&M last year.
I mean, it's hard to top
So
that, I will say.
yeah, I mean that guy on the bike, man, just
Oh,
had me pumped up last year. Just
oh man. Oh man. It was out of a movie. It was
it was
out of a movie
unreal.
what he did last year.
You talk about playing your heart out, man. And
Oh,
just overall, this defense is not what it was last year. A lot of key departures. Guys head to the NFL.
they don't get
I
that goal
think,
line stop. I think.
yeah,
Remember the goal line stop that effectively, well,
yeah.
it's two of them, but one
Mhm.
really changed the game. I don't think they
Yeah,
get that stop, though the guy who technically made the play, Ethan Burke, is still
he's
on
still
the
there.
team,
He's still there.
and they have talent, but I don't know if we talk about enough 2 straight years of Steve Sarkisian success. Where does a lot of the Georgia and Alabama success start, Joe? On the defensive line. When you're losing guys like Big Alfred Collins, who was a great interview last year, by the way, after the game, what a fantastic guy. When you lose guys like Tavondre Sweat, these are guys who are every down, except when you rotate them, defensive linemen. That is so key in a physical matchup like a rivalry game at Kyle Field. When you can plug A and B gaps and make the offense have to account for you and potentially double team a D tackle, that opens everything up for your edge guys.
And we even mentioned his name a lot too, but when you have the great pass rush coupled with a Thorpe Award winner and Jahdae Barron,
Yes.
they've been missing Jahdae Barron so much
Yes.
this year. My goodness, how
And you
dynamic
see,
he
and
was
you
last
see his
year.
name get called on Sundays.
Oh
Now,
yeah.
as rookies,
Big,
you
big
see
factor.
Alfred Collins made a huge play for the 49ers a few weeks ago, essentially won him a game. They call his name a lot, and Jahdae Barron. There's Jahdae Barron with a stop. Another good ABU by Jahdae Barron. You hear him a lot. And if they're not getting
Yeah.
cooked, that's a good thing for a defensive player. They're making immediate impacts at the next level.
Most of these Texas players have panned out really solid
Yes.
in the next level these last 2 years. And I don't know if this defense can put up as great of an effort as they did last year, but I know for a fact that the offense can look much more smooth against
Yes.
this Texas A&M defense. I think they can put up more points than they did last year. How many missed opportunities that Quinn Ewers and this offense had last year when it came to the red zone? I mean, that game could have legit been, 30,
Yeah.
40 to whatever A&M had. It was low. I believe it was, what, 7 points because the pick six or 10
Yep.
points.
Yep. They scored
Yeah.
10, I believe. They did not score an offensive touchdown. They
Yeah.
they
And so
brought the they brought was it a pick six or a scoop and score?
it was a pick six, I believe.
Oh,
Right?
but he also fumbled inside of the 10. Yes, on a
Yeah.
separate
Yeah.
possession. Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Just such a stressful game.
And so the Aggies didn't score an offensive touchdown. You know what that game reminded me a lot of? Especially last year, the first Georgia game from last year. One team, in both cases, the road team, more talented, came in and physically asserted their dominance, particularly on the defensive side of the football. Now,
Hmm.
it didn't happen as badly in the second time the Horns played Georgia in the SEC championship game, but it returned to form largely this year in Athens in a really tough environment when A&M had to travel on the road. So now, or when Texas had to travel on the road, now A&M was the team that was out physicaled last year. I know there's a lot of turnover, but there's a lot of overlap on these rosters. Okay. What's to stop this game, I pose to you, Joe, from returning to form in and we see a physically imposing Texas emboldened, knowing what they did last year, and now they're on their home field. And they're the more desperate team, like you said.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair and desperate they'll be. I believe it'll be chippy, for sure, being that it is a rivalry game. And, I was talking about how they didn't score an offensive touchdown. Technically, they still have not scored an offensive touchdown since that last game that we thought was the last Lone Star Showdown where Justin Tucker kicked that game-winning field goal. So they haven't scored an offensive touchdown in Texas in 14 years going on. That will probably end in this game
Yeah,
on Friday. But
yeah.
that's the kind of stuff, that's the kind of jawing that goes on between these two fan bases in the franchise. They haven't scored on Texas in a decade and a half, basically. And so I think this will be a chippy game. Do I think it'll be a shootout? I don't think so, but it'll be much more scoring than last year for sure. And I think that it'll be about the red zone defense. Who can cash in? Because Texas A&M's defense is so much improved. And I know they didn't
Yes.
look exactly amazing against South Carolina, but again, it's a team
Well, they looked
game, and
horrendous in the first half, but then they stepped
but
up.
how they did in the second half. Yeah, the
Yeah.
second half was unreal. You don't get comebacks without the defense. A lot of times people talk about what this quarterback did to lead the team down the field in a comeback victory. Well, somebody has to get stops. So you can't forget the defense in that. When the Patriots came back against the Falcons, there's not as much hype about what Belichick and that defense did to stop, or I guess what Shanahan did to really sell that game as well. But there's not as much talk about what the defenses do to start the comeback, and then it's about what the offense can do to actually push the ball down the field. So, props to that Texas A&M defense. They are one of the best units in America. They have been pretty much all season long, and Coach Mike Elko and his offense have led a really solid, consistent offensive attack that's really balanced. And Marcel Reed, I think the key for Texas is that they have to make him a passer, contain him in the pocket because once he gets in open space,
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
whole different ball game. We've seen what it's like when he's in the pocket. He's a good passer, but you'd rather have him kill you that way than extend
Yes.
plays with his legs because he is one speedy dude.
Well, and I would say this defense lost some talent from last year, but not quite the talent that the offense lost, right? You have a lot of you have a lot of young DBs who, just like Arch, have developed this year. Grayson Littleton's having a great season, quietly.
Yeah.
He's having a great season. Um, Jelani McDonald has had some tough moments, including that tackling effort against Florida. He's largely rebounded from that. Michael Taff, the defense just got him back, potentially big, big leader back there. So I agree with your assessment. Play contain, and that starts with the defensive ends. They have to stay disciplined. You cannot just rush up the field or immediately go inside. If they maintain gap discipline, I think occasionally utilize a spy, then they can do things against Marcel Reed. And when you look at A&M's schedule, I encourage folks to look at it. I just looked at it. They have not had a signature win since September, and that was a 1 point squeaker in South Bend against a team that we know is good, but we don't know how good, and they're not in a conference, and they lost 2 games. Okay, we know they're good, but how good are they? They can vary a lot year to year, and you don't get good barometers for them because they're Notre Dame. Their
Mhm.
SEC schedule has been the softest it could possibly be. And they still have escaped at times. South Carolina, which we mentioned. Not that Texas hasn't either. And those have been well documented. They escaped against Auburn. There was some interesting calls in that game, Joe, if you'll remember. Early season game against Auburn. Auburn nearly went in there and stole one. You just never know. Now, dangerous weapons all over this A&M team. Got to mention Casey Concepcion, leading offensive weapon, leading receiver, 52 catches on the year for 829 yards, 9 touchdowns. So conceivably could get over the 1,000 yard mark in 12 games. I don't know if that happens against Texas, but he will be targeted early and often. Joe, anyone you think we need to watch out for from A&M before I get into the spread and we get into our picks?
I was gonna get into Casey Concepcion too because he's such a nifty receiver now. In the South Carolina game, my goodness, he was struggling in that first half. A lot of brick hands, as were a lot of other players in that team. Just couldn't find a way to secure the ball and weren't helping their quarterback out in Marcel Reed. Not a lot of teams though can find a way to come back down 27. And without guys like him making ways to rebound like he did, they don't come back in that game and potentially get knocked out of the CFP rankings because wow, that could have been disastrous for them. But yeah, guys like Casey Concepcion, defensively, guys like Howell, who's their leading sack man, he's been amazing. Torian York, the linebacker, has been really good. Reuben Owens, obviously, it's a shame that he was so beat up this past season because he would have been a big difference maker for their rush attack last year, and you're seeing just how good he is this year and how balanced he is in that backfield with Marcel Reed. But for sure, the number one guy to watch out for is Casey Concepcion because I think he is their number one playmaker clearly. And I think that if you find a way to eliminate him from this game and let others beat you, I mean, Texas can find a way to hang in this game. I think that Texas A&M will get their points on the board, but find a way to get off the field on third down if you're Pete Kwiatkowski's defense, and find a way to at least win most of the red zone appearances. I think this is Texas' game to lose. It sounds crazy to say, but you have it started. I don't like to refer to the past a lot, but I really do feel like it weighs into some of these players how Texas has dominated this series for a majority of this century, a majority of the last 25, 30 matchups. So I think that it matters. None of the stats really matter, but the history absolutely matters in this matchup, and the environment absolutely matters. The fact that this is in DKR and not Kyle Field gives Texas a chance to me because last year Texas out-talented A&M. I mean, they were just a better team. They were better physically.
Yeah.
A&M arguably has more talent than Texas this year, or is at least playing better with their talent. But this time it's in DKR. And when 102,000 Longhorn fans get up on their feet, man, and have their Longhorns in the corner, you know, I don't think there's a lot of teams that can run into Texas and do it like Georgia did last year. So that gives Texas the advantage, at least to me.
I would agree with that. Um, Vegas disagrees with us, the wise guys, the bookmakers, but it's not by a wide margin. And this could obviously move. We're recording Tuesday night. As of now, A&M is a 2.5 point favorite, so not even a field goal. That means theoretically, if this game was being played on a neutral field, they'd be about a 5.5 point favorite. Typically, home advantage, they say, is around 3 points or so. But the ESPN Football Power Index, Joe, agrees more with
I
us.
saw that. I saw
Texas had a
that.
51.5% chance to win.
Isn't
Slim,
isn't that
slim
interesting?
margins. And speaking of that number, the over-under is also 51.5 points. Do with that what you will. The game will be broadcast on ABC, which, as some of you may know, I work for an ABC station. So if you are in Corpus Christi or the Coastal Bend, we got the Lone Star Showdown for you. If you are in South Texas, check your local listings. Also, for any of you out there, Coastal Bend or not, ABC has a heck of a 3 game slate, and this pertains to Texas on Black Friday. Don't go to the stores. Wait for Cyber Monday to do your shopping. Football's on. What are you, crazy? First of all, 11 a.m. Central Time, the Egg Bowl. This is why is this important for UT fans? We need an Ole Miss loss, and we need one badly to put them into some kind of jeopardization with the committee. Maybe they wouldn't fall out, but chaos helps us. So we're Mississippi State fans. Texas also beat Mississippi State this season, would make that look a little better. And then, obviously, for good old fashioned hatred in the afternoon window, Georgia Tech. That's a big game for Texas. Georgia Tech needs to be knocked down a peg. I believe, Joe, they're still ahead of Texas in the poll. Could,
Georgia
well,
Tech?
or
No,
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 they
no,
fell because of Duke.
no. They fell because of that NC State game.
Oh, okay. That's right. That's right. Because they lost. However, Georgia still needs to win in order to boost themselves up, get them another ranked win, make Texas look better. And then obviously the Lone Star Showdown at 6:30 Central Time. Joe, with that, I'll let you go first. What is your score prediction? Anything else you want to add?
For Texas against A&M, I'm gonna go Texas 28 and A&M 24. I think it'll be a really good game. Just a smidge above that over under, I believe. But I think that it's going to be a really competitive game, much more high scoring than last year. Teams are actually going to cash in the red zone. I don't think there will be a lot of turnovers, but I do think there will be a crucial turnover that Texas gets to essentially win the game. I don't know who it'll come from. I don't know if it'll be a pick or a fumble, but it'll be something in the fourth quarter that wins Texas the game when they need a stop. I think this defense comes clutch after playing one of their worst games in garbage time against Arkansas. I think they find a way to step up, and I trust that Arch Manning, this offense, will get the points that they need.
Absolutely. Before I get into my prediction, a few other games to keep your eyes on because, again, I don't know if even those of us with the burnt
Hmm.
orange, most colored burnt orange glasses would say that a win guarantees Texas getting in, or that Texas will definitely blow out A&M. I don't think anybody could tell you that with a straight face. So Texas needs help, right? Vanderbilt, Tennessee, huge one. Texas needs Tennessee to win, preferably not in a blowout fashion, to move Vandy beneath Texas, but to not have Tennessee leapfrog Texas. Pitt, Miami, another huge one. Also, good to see two college football brands being a little bit back and in the rankings. Pitt and Miami, that's fun. That's an old Big East game. Obviously, need Pitt to win that game because number 12 Miami is ahead of Texas. That has massive implications in the ACC title race. Also, in my home state of the Commonwealth of Virginia, we could use a UVA loss to Virginia Tech. UVA is right on Texas's heels and could still play for the ACC title, therefore leapfrogging Texas. You're rooting for an Utah loss, which nearly happened this weekend to Kansas State. So close, Wildcats, but you failed us there. They play the Kansas Jayhawks. And then, of course, the Iron Bowl, which will happen after the Lone Star Showdown is determined. So maybe you won't have this on. Maybe you will anyway because you're a college football fan and who doesn't like the Iron Bowl? Alabama visits Auburn. on ABC at 6:30 Saturday night. The Crimson Tide are a 6.5 point favorite. Goes without saying, Texas fans would want an Auburn victory there right before Selection Sunday. Joe, we're sticking with a theme here of similar predictions. I had 27-24 UT in my head, but I'm going to be a little bit different for the audience because that's way too similar to your prediction. I'm going to say this is a an arch legacy game. This is a game where whether it puts them in the playoff or not, and I'm going to say that they come up just short because not enough chaos will happen. But this will be the sort of game to build into next year, the momentum builder. Think Vince Young's breakout performance in the Rose Bowl against
Against
Michigan a
Michigan.
year before he famously ran for the Roses on 4th and 5 against USC a year later. I'm not saying a natty is in Texas' future next year, but this is something to build towards next year, and it's huge for recruiting. Texas 35, A&M 31.
Wow, that's a beauty.
To be different. But originally, I was going to say 27-24 on a Shipley game-winning field goal, Justin Tucker-esque.
Whew. This time in Austin, that'd be awesome. I'd be there for that. I don't know if it comes down to a field goal though. I do think that it'll for sure come down to a defensive stop. I don't know if I trust Mason Shipley down the stretch like that unless it's like a little chip shot. But I feel like the
Trust him more than
defense.
Burt Auburn,
Oh, for sure. But I mean,
especially
come on. Come
especially
on.
especially 45, 50 and shorter.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah.
For sure. Yeah, infinitely more. Sorry. Sorry, Bert.
But this will be decided on the margins. Kicking, turnovers, as you mentioned, field position could be even if it's a higher scoring game, obviously always important. But that is going to wrap up episode 11 of the Hump Day Huddle. Be sure to check out our X profiles down below. Check out the great work that Terry and everyone else at Horns Illustrated is doing. We will have people covering the game, including Terry Middleton. Get well soon, Terry. And here's to a Longhorns victory on Black Friday. We're out, everybody. Have a great weekend and have a great Thanksgiving.